When you found out the child was a girl, did that change anything in your mind?
Yes.
Real talk, my goal is to ask you some questions you've never been asked before. I want to take a stroll through your mind. Ready to get vulnerable? She's the actor who brings raw authenticity to every role, challenging conventions and pushing boundaries. This is Richa Chadha.
Okay, so I don't listen to all people, but I listen to smart people. And one of the smartest people I know is Sanjay Leela Bansali, sir, who only said one thing to me when I met him, and he said, you need to meet someone by the name of Richa Chadha because you and her will get along so well. So here we are. We're meeting, and I cannot wait. And clearly there's a reason. So I want to talk to you. But first, I want to start kind of early, in the beginning, okay? Because I know you were born, and then you had 4 brothers.
Yeah.
Only girl, right?
Yes, only girl.
What was that like, growing up in a house with 4 brothers?
I grew up in a joint family. So my chacha has 3 boys and my mom has another son. So there were 4 boys in the house, and I was kind of situated in the middle. I had an older brother and a younger brother and all that going on. And I think it made me really tough because I of course I was a girl, but I wasn't highly feminized in that environment because I was always playing with them and they were always doing really rough shit sometimes. And then I kind of softened a little later, which is great. I have a nice mother who I need to thank for that. She sent me to like Kathak classes early, and she was like, here's another side to this experience. But like proper, I had a boycott, and so it was quite cool to grow up in a joint family.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Were your brothers and you raised the same in the sense of, were you allowed to do everything they were allowed to do?
Absolutely.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So there was nothing you weren't allowed to do or told, actually, even if not in your family, because it sounds like your family was very like, you can do whatever your brothers do. Extended family, community, society. Did you ever get told at a young age that as a girl, you shouldn't do this thing?
I would say that, so my dad's Punjabi, obviously the Chadha side. So yes, thank you. My mom's Bihari. So a few times, like when my nani, my maternal grandmother would visit, I remember the first time she said something to me, which was, I was like, what is she saying? I was jumping on the bed and I was about in class 3. That means I must have been 7 or 8. And she was like, if you keep jumping like this, no one's going to want to marry you. And you can't do this in your in-laws' house. And then I was just like, is she crazy? And then my mother was like, no, but she was born in the 1920s and, she was married at the age of 13 and she probably had her first kids much later. So she's coming from that context.
Yeah. I feel like often girls get told, if you do this, who will marry you? And that list is a really long list.
Yeah.
I once got told, if you whistle, girls aren't supposed to whistle. If you whistle, who will marry you?
Yes.
If you play...
Avara log siti bajate hain. That was what I was told.
Yeah.
Like.
What else were the things? Did you hear anything else from your grandma? Other thing, like, if you do this, no one will marry you?
Weirdly, my Punjabi side, of course, we have to acknowledge our own inherent racism. They were like, chai mat piyo, kale ho jaoge. Dhoop mein mat khelo with the boys, kale ho jaoge. Like, obviously, being kala is like the one thing that will be a super deterrent.
Did they say that to your brothers as well?
No.
Interesting. So that only applied to the girls.
Yeah. But I have to say, my immediate family was never like this in any way. Mm-hmm. My chacha, chachi, my parents, not at all. But we had visiting folk and there was always a bit of like, oh, when she goes for a vacation to her nani ghar, it's kind of hilly there, so iska rang saaf ho jata hai. And all that was often discussed, which I found very bizarre. Like,
right.
So I was like, so color is really temporary. It depends on where you are.
Speaking of family, you have a new family.
Yeah.
You gave birth to a wonderful baby girl. You're a very new mom. I don't have any kids of my own, but I can imagine that you're anticipating and you're thinking, but it's probably when it happens, it's a surreal experience.
Yeah.
What was it like? Were you terrified? What were your thoughts going through your mind?
So I would say that my first response was, I was a little bit afraid. There's like climate change and there's like a genocide and there's so much rubbish going on in the world. Is this really a good idea? And then it became a little bit personal, like, because also when you're super independent, then that bit changes instantly because you have to be responsible for a human being. And I've always had pets. So but it's very different. I'm not that tiffin box. I can leave out some food for them and then they're okay.
Yeah.
But just to commit to being like a child's only supply of food for the first 6 months at least is a big commitment. I would say that my first initial response was just fear, and I was like, oh my God, what is my life over? Will I ever, all that stuff was going on in my mind. But I would say that to have a very equal partner in that sense, and someone who's not really raised in a way in which gender roles are super calcified, like you can only do this. Or for instance, do you know in India, most women go off to their mother's house in the last trimester or whatever. Your mom will testify to this. But basically, I feel like it's also outsourcing the hard part. Like it's like, now you go there and then she will take care of you, which is great because girls need to be pampered and loved. But also it's, the child belongs to the both of you. It's nice if he's also there to see you go through all the physical stuff and the emotional stuff and just be there for you when you want to sleep and you're cranky.
Yeah, totally. I want to ask you a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Your reaction to having a child, totally get it. Well, as best as I can get it. When you found out the child was a girl, did that change anything in your mind?
Yes. For a second, I was like, oh, we live in India, I have to buy a gun. But then I was like, no, we'll just see. We'll raise her to be strong like me.
Yeah, it's a little tough to...
it is tough.
It's a tough.
Yeah. Anyone who says otherwise is really not, I feel like, not being honest.
So I feel like, before having a baby girl, I can imagine that you're already kind of looking at the climate and being like, this is really tough. I'm sure it gets a lot more real.
Yeah.
I guess if you could instill a message into people watching this, like, what could we do to make the world a better place for your daughter?
Just focus on the sons. You have to focus on the sons. That's it. It's not daughters doing that to other daughters. It's the sons. The son has to have a strong bond with the father. The son has to understand consent from the mother. The son has to see the father treat the mother or the sister well. The sister has to be fed the same as the son, be sent to school. These are the key things. We keep focusing on, even now, all the response to the different rapes that are going on in different parts of the country. I just feel like the response often from educational institutions and places is just don't go out in the dark, make sure that you have a stole if you go out in this. And then it's always the girls being controlled. And I feel like we can never be a happy society or a happy country if the women are not happy. The women are the backbone, really, of the house, of the country. You can't be happy unless 50% of the people constantly living in fear, watching who's following them, who's talking, who's throwing acid, who's murdering them in broad daylight. So these are things that are really key and need to be discussed all the time. And I've never even used the word all men or not all men. I'm not even going into that because I feel like we have so much work to do. No one's saying all men. Really, nobody is. So don't take it so personally. I don't have answers, but I really feel like there needs to be a big shake-up and it needs to change first within the home.
Yeah, there definitely does seem to be this defensiveness that comes out of some men when we're talking about something traumatic, we're talking about our experience as women, and suddenly it's...
I'm not like that. No one's saying that you are by Berja. Not all men have this tendency to be aggressive towards a woman, but literally all women I know who were raised in India have in some way been catcalled, whistled at, attacked, physically touched, groped in a bus, or downright raped, molested, assaulted, whatever. Why does that need to be a rite of passage experience?
May not be all men, but it's pretty much all women have a story about this.
Why should we?
Yes, totally. And
am I talking too much?
No, first of all, I just want to give you a big hug. Everything you're saying, you're so smart and you're beautiful and you're confident. I love you.
I love you.
But what I want to say is a lot of the things you're mentioning are so valid, but they are after a girl is born, when she's out in the world. But I think before you've also said, I've read up on you, and you said that violence against women also starts in the womb. When a girl's in the womb, what do you mean by that?
Feticide, infanticide. There's a reason I couldn't find out the gender of my child living in India, because it's illegal. Because people go and they decide not to, they opt not to have the girl child.
Got it. So you found out the sex of your baby when you had the baby?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is what I mean. Like, it's so systemic. And I was talking to the ultrasound person. I was like, we're not one of those people. And he'd be like, you would be so surprised to see who comes in here and with what intent. He's telling me about like a huge business family with like millionaires basically who were like, oh, we need to have an heir, so we need to know. And he was like, sorry, it's illegal. Or someone who's already has 4 girls and wants now a boy who's a laborer is like, can you just tell me if I... so I'm saying, you never know.
What I love about you also is you're clearly so passionate about this, and you clearly are a feminist and you care a lot about this, but it also shows in your work. I want to talk about Hira Mandi, which I love Hira Mandi, and I loved your character. I think you nailed it. It was one of my favorite performances to watch. I was... spoiler alert, if I'm going to spoil this.
You can spoil it now.
If you haven't watched, it's your fault. First of all, let me just say it's your fault if it's a spoiler. I was devastated when your character died because I just was craving more of you on screen. I wanted more of your performance. I loved your character. I want to talk about, of course, the iconic scene, the dance number you have, because it's actually really symbolic. I feel like that dance sequence is, of course, you can look at it from saying you're such a talented actress and technically it's so beautiful, and of course Sanjay sir shot it so beautiful. Of course you can say all that, but symbolically it's a woman that's going through a lot of different things. In some strange way, that's definitely not healthy. I think a lot of women can see themselves in that scene.
Yes.
Because it kind of is like, listen, as humans we all wear masks. We all go about wearing masks, but I think women in particular, we have such layered masks. There's masks upon masks that we have to wear in different situations, right?
Yeah.
And that scene is so beautiful because she's drunk, yes. So she's doing this beautiful dance, but she's drunk. And she's obviously heartbroken and humiliated, but she has to perform. And so she's putting on this smile and dancing beautiful. And that, for me, in a nutshell, is the experience of being a woman. It's putting on this performance often when we're in turmoil or when we're uncomfortable or when we're feeling some sort of discomfort, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that feeling of like all the eyes are on me and I have to put on this act and the show must go on, but I'm crumbling inside. I wanted that experience to come through. And I think that everyone has some or the other moment of heartbreak or like public rejection. I think we all underestimate how much rejection plays on our minds. Being an actor, to roz ka kaam hai, but I'm saying even otherwise, like, men also fear rejection a lot. But rejection is such a primal feeling of being separated from your family or your class or, people laughing at you. Or it drives a lot of... so to have a public rejection can be really super humiliating.
I know you and your husband have a production company. I know you also have a film, Girls Will Be Girls.
Yes.
I think one thing we have in common is we really care about this cause.
Yeah.
And then we really like storytelling, and we really like, I have a production company too. There is clearly a marriage between those two things.
Yes.
Storytelling, I believe.
Yeah.
I have to believe that it has an impact.
Yeah.
Right? So do you look for that when you accept a role? Like, how important is that for you when you're choosing a role? And do you believe storytelling can be that superpower that can impact?
A movie is like a novel in motion. It's giving people the experience of living that reality out and watching it and learning something and feeling that impact here. And our stories are what makes us. I really think that it's very, very important. And sometimes I've said yes to a bad production house and low money because I feel like, okay, the story needs to be told. It's not always been a good call, also, I'm not afraid to admit. But when it has, and even if the film has not immediately been successful at the box office or whatever, I feel like, people, thanks to the streamers now, keep watching it in waves and experiencing it and discovering it and talking about it.
Do you feel now where the state of the industry now is very different from what it was before? Do you feel completely safe, comfortable on set? Do you feel like you can get any role? Do you feel like the stories you want to see made are being made? Or do you think, what do you think the state of women in Hindi cinema is right now?
I would say that there's massive improvement, but that improvement has to be felt from the point of view of participation of the crew. For instance, like just just looking around at the number of women here, that aspect has changed. In my first few films, I feel like sometimes I and the hairdresser were the only women on set. And slowly that changed to more ADs, more writers. And of course, I was always doing indie films. So there was always healthy participation of gender. Not to say that there was no problems there or like men were not sexist or misogynist in some way. But with like studio executives becoming women with actual power to decide narrative, to decide who the crew would be, women behind the camera, like DOPs. And we started a training program for girls. So
Undercurrent, right?
Yes. Wow, I'm so happy you know about it.
I know, I love it. Not only do I know, but I love it because I'll be the first to admit my team in LA and some of the people I brought here is majority women with me. But when it comes to crew, gaffers, DPs, it is hard sometimes to find women.
Yes, it is. And especially in India, they're like, oh, women can't lift. But I'm like, but wo pani bharne ja rahi hai, then you have no qualms. 5 kgs of water across 5 miles, you got no problems with that. 5 babies every 5 years, what's wrong with you?
Most cultures in the world are sexist. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
So much of Indian religions do idolize goddesses.
Yeah.
The goddess gives birth, the goddess gives this. But it doesn't translate for some reason to the human woman.
Yeah.
What is the disconnect there?
I feel like we've devolved. I feel like we've devolved a lot from that. And a lot of that has to be and this is where it gets interesting. You're living in America now, I presume. For the abortion law, what do you think it is? It's literally trying to control how a woman chooses to reproduce and when. And it just becomes in some handmaid's tale way about control of that.
Most things are about control and power, I've learned.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the role of men when it comes to gender equality. It's an important part of the equation. Women also play a role.
Women play a role,
So what is the role of women in gender equality? What do you think our responsibility is in this mission?
Of course, first to sort of look at yourself and see where you've internalized that misogyny, that you would just go along with something that you're being told.
What is something you've had to address honestly in yourself where you're like, oh, I've internalized this bit of misogyny and I actually have to unlearn this?
It's so difficult because growing up, I thought I was a boy. Wait.
But there's still, I mean, I don't know, you tell me. I feel like even as an adult, for me sometimes, I discover I'm doing or saying something where I'm like, oh, wait, this is a little bit misogynistic. I'm getting this from somewhere.
No, it's not misogynistic, but to bring you back to something you had only asked me a little while ago. So I was reading about Frida Kahlo, the artist. And so she was pregnant and she said this line, and I watched a documentary when I was pregnant about her. And in that, she's just saying that, look, hey, I really wish to have a boy because it's a man's world. And I was pregnant at the time and I was like, it's kind of true. Growing up in India, it is true. And it like hurts me to admit it and it just like, no version of me accepts this as my reality. But there is a kernel of truth in this. And when we discovered it's going to be a girl, for a second, that fear came back in. And in the middle of my delirium from the delivery, I had this one recollection of Frida Kahlo, of all the people, saying this a century ago, that it's a man's world. And I was like, yeah, well, 150 years and nothing seems to have changed. But then some stuff must have, definitely.
A lot of ideas about what makes a good woman, a beautiful woman, all these things get thrown around. Everyone has an opinion on women. So I want to ask you, what do you think a successful woman is? How would you describe a successful woman?
I would say, you're an incredibly successful woman. You're a role model to so many. You've, been representing hard before it was like a hashtag. I would say for me, someone who's successful is about how much they can truly influence and change in their lifetime or after. and truly make an impact.
I can tell why Sanjay sir said we should meet. I've had a great time talking with you. You're so fun. I appreciate how unfiltered and candid you've been.
Thank
and all
you.
the wonderful things you said. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you like this video, you're gonna wanna watch the last one I did with Nikhil, who is the host of Be a Man Yar. He drops gems. Also, make sure you subscribe for more conversations like this. And if you want exclusive looks at future stuff, follow us at Unicorn Island. It's my charity and it's a good follow.